I'm actually really happy to be introducing two fantastic people from our Optimizely network, primarily around this amazing topic of disruptors and what disruptors can actually do for experimentation. It's something I talk with my customers about. I am a strategic CSM for Optimizely, and so I work with some really cool companies to really find those disruptors and really leverage them in an advocacy sort of way. So without further ado, I want to introduce the two amazing folks that are going to talk to you about this topic. We've got Chris Goward he is the CEO of Widerfunnel. They're also a massive sponsor of ours, and I want to thank them for their sponsorship. Take time, hit up the exhibit floor or expo floor and visit with them. They've got a lot of amazing things to share with you and can really help advance your program. Also, we have Gretchen Gary from HP. She is a senior product manager there. So without further ado, please help me give them a warm welcome to the stage.
Thanks, Tia.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tia. Grab this. So we're talking today about disruptors and how they have created experimentation programs to run smarter testing. And I'm going to show you some frameworks, some stories of what's worked for HP Instant Ink especially, and how you can apply some of these to your brands. All right? Are you ready? You guys are awake? Okay, I have a interesting stat. 92% of organizations that report year-over-year substantial revenue growth say that decisions and actions happen quickly in their organization. This is from research that we've just completed in the last few weeks and we'll be publishing next week in 2019 State of Experimentation Research Report. This will be published next week, and I'll have a way for you at the end of the presentation to get a free copy for Opticon attendees. Something else we found in the study is that an organization's ability to move quickly is inversely correlated with company size. So that's a particular, probably not surprising insight, but a challenge for a company like HP. Now, what's great, though, is that there's still hope. There is an outlier set that regardless of their company size, even though they're a large company, they're able to move quickly and make decisions fast. So how do they do that? That's why I'm thrilled to be co-presenting this session with Gretchen Gary. She's a true innovator within HP, one of the founding members of HP Instant Ink as a pilot project, which has now become a disruptor in the ink buying space. And we're going to share some details of their program, but more generally how you can apply things in your business. So there's this concept of the innovator's dilemma. In any successful company, there's a conflict, there's a tension between whether you allocate your budget to exploitation or improving what you already have, or innovation and exploration in new product opportunities, right? And in the optimization or experimentation space, a lot of people spend all of their time talking about optimization, tweaking on the edges, when really experimentation is much more than optimization. Experimentation should be used across the spectrum of business decision making. Turns out a study by BCG Henderson Institute says that only 2% of companies are actually great at both of these things. These are the companies that have efficiency and long-term stability by innovating. There are 4 characteristics of these companies, the 2% companies. One is they excel at both exploration and exploitation. So they're great at finding new opportunities and creating efficiency. They retain an outside-in focus by bringing in outside perspectives into their brand. They embrace disruptions even when they're painful. And they have a clear model for renewing by bringing outside innovations and ideas into their brand to optimize and commercialize. So this is an opportunity for you, right? You can use experimentation at the explore side, which is asking the question, what's the next idea? And then validation, which is, should we do this new idea? And then finally, an optimization. And this really is the last step, which is how should we do it best? So the right experimentation process enables you to be able to do this, to answer business questions across the spectrum of this innovator's dilemma scale. And so at Widerfunnel, we've actually been focusing all of our energy in the last 12 years of improving the process of experimentation and how to get reliable results regardless of the business question, whether it's UX on your landing pages or understanding your customers' emotional needs. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today and how to apply that. So first of all, I'll show you an overview of this experimentation process. The latest version is called the Infinity Experimentation Process. And this diagram kind of outlines conceptually how it works. There are two mindsets that are needed for a great experimentation program. You need both to get the best results. One is on the explore side, which is an expansive mindset of looking for opportunities and potential ideas in your business, and looking at your customer feedback, looking at your business goals, looking at the experience on your marketing touch points, and identifying where are there opportunities for improvement. The validate side is a different mindset completely. It's a reductive mindset of whittling out ideas that don't work, that don't prove themselves to create improvement in your overall evaluation criteria of your business to generate more revenue long term. By getting both of those right in an integrated fashion, you'll maximize your growth and insights. That's the nucleus where the power is released in your business. So I'm going to drill a little bit more into an area that's particularly innovation ready right now and was valuable for HP Instant Ink over the last few years. And that's in the behavioral science area. Now, a lot of people are talking about cognitive science and behavioral science, but a lot of people are getting it wrong. So I want to correct some myths. So it's involved with user research and persuasion principles, but here's some of the science of it. Just in the last 25 years, actually, science has realized that decision-making is not a logical process. It involves both logic and emotion. And before roughly 25 years ago, with some of the research from Damasio, the belief was that emotion and logic were in opposite sides of the spectrum, and they were in conflict, right? You were either making an emotional decision or a logical decision. But that's not true. The truth is that over 90% of decisions are actually driven by emotion primarily. And the decision is made before you logically even know it, in the limbic system of your mind. So that's why it's important to understand emotion, right? You can't just fix things logically. People make a decision emotionally and then defend the decision logically. So this is a wheel of cognitive biases. It's not meant to be legible, of course. There's 188 cognitive biases that marketers have become really enamored with lately. In the last couple of years, people are talking about behavioral science, but really they're equating it with cognitive biases, and it's not supposed to be that. Behavioral science is not about finding tactics to trick your customers. Behavioral science is much more than understanding the weird, predictably irrational ways that we make decisions. It's about understanding the emotion and the needs of your customers. Much more than just a list of biases you can grab and try to apply on your latest landing page, right? So think about your customer personas. You probably have some, right, in your business? And they probably include some demographics and psychographics and some information about the customers, but ask yourself, where did that information come from? How regularly is it updated? Have the customers changed recently? And most importantly, does it really get at the emotional state in your buying scenario and the emotion they need to have resonance with? Have you thought about that, or have you looked at that? This is important for your business from a purely financial standpoint. This is a study published in Harvard Business Review that is a study of highly satisfied customers. And it shows that a baseline of highly satisfied customers compared with those who have no emotional resonance with your experience is 18% less customer value, lifetime value. If there's some brand differentiation emotionally, there's a 13% increase in the customer value. And if you have a fully emotionally connected experience with your customers, it's a 52% increase in lifetime value of that customer. And remember, these are all highly satisfied customers, so their functional needs are all met. But the emotional need makes a massive difference in the revenue impact. So is that valuable to understand, how to create an emotional resonance? So I would propose that your growth is limited by your understanding of your customers' emotional needs. So how do we do this with HP Instant Ink? I'll share with you some examples. We ran a service called Motivation Lab. This is something we've developed over the last 3 years. And what it does is recognize that what consumers say and do is only a part of of the equation. It's only scratching the surface on what's actually behind their actions. So the Motivation Lab is designed to uncover the insights about the underlying motivations of why they behave the way they do. Within Motivation Lab, there's a framework we use called Limbic. And what it does is it shows the 3 dominant emotional states of the brain. And the words on here, this is the limbic map representation of it, and the words are in proximity to the emotional areas. And so what we can actually do is within Motivation Lab, we can plot where your customer types sit in terms of their emotional needs and where your experiences sit and show the difference between their emotional resonance. So for example, actually there are 2 things we need to take into account with emotion. One is, like I mentioned, the emotional type. So what this means is your customers are more likely to make decisions in one or more areas of the limbic map. And then within each buying context with your brand, the emotional state comes into play. And the overlap of these 2 components creates the emotional context for that decision. So thinking about HP Instant Ink, we did a study where we pulled in representative buyers of Instant Ink, and we wanted to understand what are they more likely to need from an emotional level. And looking at their emotional type, it turns out that they had primarily the trust and value areas of the emotional needs. So in trust, they have a trusted brand with HP, right? They really want to know that the brand of ink they're buying is going to be quality and that they can trust it. On-time delivery, they need to know that the ink is being delivered on time so they don't run out of ink when they need to print. Instant Ink is a little bit of a different buying process, right? The way it works is that your printer is connected to HP and it tells them when you're running low on ink and the ink automatically arrives. It's a different way it changes your behavior and your habits in buying ink. And because of that, when we looked at they need a good reason to buy. So value is very important as well. And value is a combination of the performance they're going to get and the price, the quality and price. And that's got to create an equation of value. And because it's a new way of buying ink and it's a new decision-making process, it's breaking a new habit, they're in the state of buying or signing up for Instant Ink, they're in a disciplined mindset, decision-making mindset. And that's because in a disciplined mindset, they have to consider the purchase. They have to understand something that's different than they've normally done before. And so what resonates with them is a very fact-based communication. Anything that smells of marketing turns them off because they really need to understand beyond being marketed to. So why this is important, you can see where the Motivation Lab showed the emotional needs of the customer for signing up is down in this lower right-hand area of the map. And when we then compare that with the experiences on their landing page, this was a brand design landing page. And what they were trying to do was position HP Instant Ink in a very creative, artistic, expressive, almost crafty position. And when you think about how that lines up, that's actually up there in the stimulation area. So the emotional zone of the brand they were trying to create was mismatched with the emotional needs of these customers. So our job was actually to push the experience down to create an emotional resonance that matches with what they needed and expected. So after testing, the page ended up looking quite a bit different. And what you'll see is that it actually aligns with the needs that they have emotionally. It's showing value, right? Save up to 50%. It's got the HP brand for quality. It shows a concise sentence of how it works, implying that it's easy to do. It doesn't need a lot of explanation. Plus, it has the how it works in 3 easy steps, and it's got the human element. This ended up having a massive lift in results because it was emotionally resonant with the needs of the customers. So I'm going to invite Gretchen to come up now and give a little bit more detail in some more of the experiments and the ways that they operated in the evolution of Instant Ink.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining our session. As Chris mentioned, my name is Gretchen Gary, and I'm here to share some examples of how we evolved our testing program from strictly conversion rate optimization and evolved over to the other side of the spectrum to solution innovation and guiding the product roadmap of HP Instant Ink. But first, a little background on the program. So Instant Ink in itself was an experiment to see if we could shift the paradigm on how people purchased and consumed ink. The program was built on the premise of addressing two primary pain points, the cost of ink and the fear of running out, both of which had a negative relationship with printing. We always held the customer close to heart, and we let our tests guide the solution, both with our in-store tests as well as our online optimization work. We solved for real customer problems, and we always tried to incorporate direct customer feedback whenever possible. Whether that was through usability studies or things we heard through our own surveys, we definitely tried to keep that customer loop feeding back into our solution. As every speaker here at Opticon this year has said, A/B testing really enables data-driven decision-making of your online experiences. But it also delivers a great starting point for your assumptions in financial models and your projections on the business impact of new initiatives or proposed changes to your product. When we first started testing in our early pilot days, it was about as basic as you can imagine. It was me and someone from design with Optimizely's UI editor, and we were modifying images and copy messaging. We were looking at layouts, all trying to widen the funnel and ultimately improve the conversion rate. It wasn't very easy in the beginning to win over our stakeholders. We had to win over design and brand, QA and development, which is a surprise, but there's a lot of ownership that spreads across a product like this. But ultimately, we were able to establish trust in process and protocol. And with Widerfunnel's help, we were able to evolve the solution to where we became a testing ground for new ideas, proposed product changes, and solution innovation. So just a view of the last 4 years. Our program actually goes back a little more than this, but this is our relevant time frame here. This is what I call our pull funnel. This is our website. So when someone hears about our service in store or through a friend, they're going to enter our website and come to our website. They may have an eligible printer, they may not. They may just be there to explore and understand what's going on with the information. So most of the testing that we've done, and we've done a significant amount here, is really relegated to that side of the spectrum around conversion rate optimization. There's a few areas in this funnel that are problematic, that we have tried some structural changes, and we've seen some mixed results there. But for the most part, this is our conversion rate optimization play. Around 2015, however, we introduced a push funnel. We were inserting ourselves into a setup task that people with eligible printers were doing. And really, when you think about it, that was the holy grail of our prospects, right? We knew they had an eligible printer. We knew that this service could serve them well and eliminate pain points. And there was an incredible amount of testing that went into this. And with our starting experience even, there was countless research, usability research studies, and that centerpiece there, that's where we were really doing the majority of our work with Widerfunnel in approaching how best to position this solution inside of a task like setup. This is a very high-level view, but let me jump in. When Widerfunnel came on, they brought the idea of choice architecture to us, and they explained this as a way to move beyond simple optimization, right? How do you position your service? So this was our original experience. It was informed by many rounds of research. There was even A/B testing prior to this that came up with the language there. Yes, activate. No, do not activate. But there's only 4 bullet points, very limited amount of information that we're offering you to make this choice. And this is our moment. This is our glory moment. How many of you would say, yes, activate? Do you have enough information there to make that choice? And so we put the onus on the customer at this point. With very little information, ask them, the customers, as they're evaluating this, should I activate Instant Ink? Do I have enough information to make that decision? Well, that's where we came in. Widerfunnel, with help on their design and strategy side, they came in and they suggested we reframe this decision. Instead of asking that question up front, how about we position it as something that's included with the printer? Something that is actual feature that's included, and a benefit even. And by approaching it that way, you got a little more engagement. People, obviously, there's only one call to action here. Everyone progresses to the next step. And so on that next step, the question really becomes, which instant ink plan should I choose? And we layered them in a way where the no thanks, no to instant ink option is actually at the bottom of all the plans. So after you've had a chance to review all of your options, that's when you decide, this really doesn't suit my needs. There's nothing here that does it for me. I think I'll go without it. And as far as results, incredible lift on our conversion rate. Just by reframing that decision, appealing to the emotional state the user's in, they're doing another task at this point. This is an upsell, essentially, but it's also something that is addressing known pain points. We know this is a good service for them. But it's also important to call out that it's not just conversion rate optimization that we're looking at here. As I mentioned, we always hold that customer close to heart. And shortly after we launched this experience, one of our BI analysts did this report. He was concerned that many people were choosing our 15-page plan, which is free, and were unhappy. They were unsatisfied because in their printer setup experience, they'd heard about some free trial, and they had seen that in store, perhaps. And a free trial wasn't exactly the same as the free plan. But it wasn't really easy to see that in that experience. His hypothesis was that people were incorrectly choosing the free plan because that seemed like the right thing to do. And he brought me this study, and I went to support and ops, and we collaborated even across all of our organizations that can have that type of customer insight. And they collaborated, they confirmed the same finding. Yes, people were complaining that they were incurring overage charges when they'd heard they had some free trial. Why were they incurring expenses like 1 or 2 months in after this enrollment? So when you look at this experience with that hypothesis in mind, where's the free trial? It's actually the third bullet on the last 3 plans. It was visually deprioritized in this restructuring. And while we did achieve some really significant improvements in our conversion rate, we had lost this primary acquisition tool that we have to acquire customers in our paid plans. And so with Widerfunnel's help again, we looked at this situation as all these plans are not created equal. In fact, there's 2 different offers here. There is a free trial for 3 months where you can print up to 300 pages, and then there's a free plan. And the free plan does not expire. However, you can only print 15 pages with that plan. And a person who is aware of what value they can get from that free trial actually has a level playing ground here. Those plans on the left side are not all created equal. And the ones on the right, the way that it's presented on the right actually helps illuminate why you would want to choose the free trial. And what we saw here was a positive lift, again, 6%, on top of what we already achieved with reframing before. But what's not really noticed here in these Optimizely metrics is that we had a huge improvement in our customer satisfaction, right? So customers were happier, they were more aware of what they were doing, and they were choosing the right plan for them. So in addition to this understanding how to reframe our solution, there's a big segmentation play too. And that shifts us back to the other side of the spectrum, to optimization. Cultural nuance across different countries is significant. I know a lot of you in this room already know that. Some messaging that works in the United States for acquiring customers may not work in France or Germany, where there's more privacy or security concerns about how their data might be used. And so there is an enormous opportunity within our new structure now to further optimize, exploit that existing function, and really get to the bottom of how we can do that across our countries. Also, printer categories. HP manufactures a pretty broad array of printers. The user that buys the low-end printer on Black Friday is a lot different than the one who's managing a home business and needs to have that high-volume printer. They're going to understand whether the solution is right for them probably a little bit better than the person who just bought an impulse buy on Black Friday. So we also realize that we need to segment our experiences and read out our results according to those factors. Retailers source too. This one's a little more mysterious, but I think everyone in the room understands there's a difference between the shopper who shops at Walmart and the shopper who goes to the Apple Store. And that is really, there's a lot of insight in there. And when you're a manufacturer that ships products, the same products to lots of different retailers, it becomes very difficult to stripe out where they're coming from. You actually don't have much insight in that regard. But we do have many little pilots that we're trying to get to the bottom of that as well and speak to those specific personas based on the retailers specifically as well. And one other aha moment that came out of some of the research studies at the motivation labs that we've done with Widerfunnel was customers react differently to our value proposition depending on the point of their customer journey. So their reception to our different messaging changes over time, and that's been a really valuable insight. I don't know if it was an Opticon 3 years ago or if it was a Optimizely webinar, but I heard that saying, launch and pray, and I just love it. I just imagine me in my early days on this program where you build the solution, you think you've done the research, you think you have something good, and you sit it out there, and you cross your fingers, and you hope, I really hope that was good, and that we at least deliver the estimate that I delivered to the director that we're going to get from this campaign. And the beauty really of A/B testing is that you can actually learn and then launch. And the collaboration we've had with Widerfunnel has really enabled us to take the design and development of our alternate experiences and move them off the HP plate. In our early days, we were trying to prioritize that work, do the design, the development of so many alternative experiences, and it took a lot of resources. And half the time, if not more, they weren't more successful than our control. And then you'd hear kind of grumblings like, well, why do we even spend the time doing that? So in a lot of ways, we freed up some bottlenecks by moving that off of our plate, testing first, and then when we found a winner, we were able to build a business case, bring it back to our prioritization process, bring it to our designers, developers, so it ended up being test, then launch, and further optimize. Explore, exploit, repeat. It really does help you know in advance how best to guide your solution. And on that topic, you're always going to have that push and pull with brand and design. I sit in the product team, and I manipulate experiences. Doesn't make everyone happy, but I've been doing it for some time now, so people trust me at least. But around the time we brought this first structural change, the brand organization was bringing a full brand reset to Instant Ink. They wanted new colors. They were reconfiguring our in-store assets as well. And they came to us with this VAR-B over here on the far right. This was their hero experience. They had a new logo they were really happy about. They were doing some vertical card table configurations. They wanted it to look consistent across every touch point. So we said, okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and test that. We put that on the docket, and then we said, how about we have a backup plan, like a safety net, and let's just do the colors with our existing experience. Let's see how that works. Well, unfortunately, the colors, although maybe a little more vibrant and a little prettier, they didn't exactly do better, but it's negligible. I can live with that. That's pretty much a flat result, in my opinion. But this other one, imagine if we had launched that. We would be scrambling to revert to what we had before, because it would have taken 40 points of lift off of our original metric. And so obviously the brand organization can't argue with data here, right? Everyone knew right away this was a bad move. We're not going to do that. But we'll do the one in the middle. We'll meet you in between. And we're going to continue to optimize that. I think those colors may work on your in-store materials, but maybe not online where The font color was even different on the yellow. And again, it happened to us when we reframed that user choice again with the offer focus. We had brought this to our design team, and our design team wanted to make it look a little more HP. They wanted to improve the design a bit, make it feel a little more vibrant. I really liked it. I thought, wow, that's great. I love how it makes it feel fluid, feels like ink. I'm into it. Let's set this test up. And so they changed the first screen as well as the screen with the plans on it. They wanted to eliminate some of the noisiness. And again, a negative hit of 15%. Even though everyone agreed that we liked the new design better and we were ready to move forward and push this to death. But, of course, we can't accept a metric like that. So instead, we stuck with our original design that we knew as a winner, with the promise that we would continue to try to optimize in the future. So what worked for Instant Ink? I've heard a lot of people at this conference say, break down those silos and centralize your testing. And when it comes to actually bringing a new service to life in a giant company that disrupts another part of the business, I would say keep that silo. I would say let it operate on its own. Because if you try to bring it into the general organization, there's so many layers and so much heavy influence of other stakeholders that you might not be able to get that agility and dynamicism that you need. Also, always stay true to the direct voice of the customer. It has really helped Instant Ink stay ahead of the game. Like I said, we improved the conversion rate. We had great lift. But unfortunately, so many of our customers were not happy with that. So always be out there with your ears open to hear what your customers think. Also, our results-based pilot created a culture of experimentation in our team that has become a model for agility and a model for data-driven decision-making. And it always helps me when I wake up in the morning and go to work to know that I'm solving real customer problems. And I am always working towards making sure that those problems are still relevant. And lastly, it's always good to get an outsider's perspective. Find out if you're missing on certain positioning opportunities or structural changes. I like to think of Instant Ink as part of that 2% of businesses that are excelling in conversion rate optimization, but also in solution innovation. With a culture of experimentation, we are always hungry for new insights and opportunities to grow. Thank you.
Thanks, Gretchen. Definitely is one of the 2% companies, and Gretchen is one of those intrapreneurs within a company like HP, creating a true insight-driven business unit. So I just want to summarize a few things that you can take away from this presentation. Hopefully you've absorbed a few of these things. There's been a lot of information here. One of the really important ones that's often overlooked is considering customer satisfaction as a metric in your overall evaluation criterion. Don't optimize just for conversion rate. Conversion rate optimization, in fact, as a term is, I won't use the word, not optimal, let's say. So let's talk more about experimentation towards improving the business overall. Design for conversion is a unique skill, and it's different than design for brand. Both are useful in different areas of the business. So for direct response funnels, you need design for conversion skill. If the choice in your funnel is complicated, try reframing it to a simpler, even an obvious choice that they can't say no to. Give them an offer they can't refuse. And lastly, instead of multiple options within one decision, can you delay some of the decision till later? Make a simple choice, reduce the paradox of choice, and push off something more complicated until they have momentum in their decision making in your funnel. All right? Now, as I said, we have a research report that we've just done on our evaluation of the experimentation industry. It's research based on over 200 respondents in amazing brands throughout the US on how they're running experimentation programs, what they're getting the best result, what are the characteristics of the fast growth versus no growth companies. So I'd like to give you a copy of that for Opticon attendees. Please don't share this with anyone else, but you can email iwant@widerfunnel.com or go to widerfunnel.com/opticon19. And when it's released next week, hopefully next week, or just tidying it up, we'll send that to you. All right? So we have 7 minutes for questions, if you have any, and Tia will run the microphone over to...
Hi, thank you for the presentations, really valuable stuff. I wonder about the emotional support or like addressing the customer's emotional needs. Like I know myself, I'm like, whatever works for me today, like 2 weeks later, it might actually have the opposite effect. But what can you do in order to understand that when that's happening, like at a company like this, right, at HP? Like it worked today, but 2 weeks later it's actually having a negative impact. How can you know that? And I guess the same question is like, how long can you rely on that lift? How long does it last in you actually?
We tend to find some pretty consistent states that people are in. So over time, you're right, that the emotional context will change. Usually that's because they're in a different stage of the customer journey or decision-making process. So at each state and each touch point in your marketing touch points, usually there's a similarity in the kind of emotional context that they're having at that moment and in that state. And in the next couple of weeks, as they progress, that will change. And so you want to evaluate the emotional state as well as the emotional type of the buyer. So both of those, that's why they have to have that Venn where the context relates to both.
How are you evaluating?
Yeah, so the Motivation Lab service that I described actually talks to customers in different states of the journey to find the emotional state at each one and actually maps the emotional contours as you go through the journey. Yeah.
So my question was literally that, like, how do you do more research on the Limbic, on that Limbic mapping? But I guess more detailed, how do you determine what point of the customer journey they're on, and how do you find users that are on that journey, so you can do that research?
Yes, selecting the members of the groups are very important. That's part of the secret sauce of really any user testing. So this is kind of like user testing plus. It's user testing for UX as well as emotion. So you have to find representative customers that match what you're looking for in like your buyers as well as your current customers to get a really representative understanding of what they need emotionally. So we use some profiling screeners and ways of gathering those through a panel. Yeah. So and we have a lot more information. I didn't have time to get into all the detail. So actually, if you email us, iwant@widerfunnel.com, we have like brochures and more descriptions, blog posts about how that works that we can send to you. Yeah.
Thank you for all of the information. When you were talking about sometimes needing those silos when you're being disruptive, how do you manage that is there any point or do you have any managed transparency? Do you have maybe representatives from different portions of the organization informed in that process so they know what's happening? And has there been, pushback even or to that surprise that might happen when you are in that silo and then this new thing pops up and it is disruptive?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there was a fair amount of managing that process of introducing the A/B testing culture. We do have a very transparent sharing system. So we are in the GB, we're in the business unit. We're not in a marketing organization. As I said, I sit on the product side. So we are very open with regard to how we share our testing insights. And I think honestly, it just inspires our partners more than anything. We don't really ever hear pushback. I mean, I think you can see like in the data it really speaks for itself. It's really hard to say, why didn't you go with that brand positioning? Well, here, we can just show you some numbers. I think just being transparent, also like evangelizing the results that you get. Just being out there and talking about it and sharing it. We were lucky that we had some executive sponsors who were really passionate about this program, and so they also shared that widely with the company. So I think that also helped to our advantage. Yep.
We have one final question here.
In your presentation, you talked about brand impact, and if you hit those emotional needs, you hit them. And then later you talked about how conversion rate optimization, the design, the UX design, is different to the way you design brand. I mean, given the fact that you can have such a brand impact, is it really that different? Like, isn't designing UX that actually has that conversion impact, making a positive impact. So in effect, good design that's tested is actually better for brand than traditional brand design, which obviously failed a few times.
Yes, the answer is yes. And in fact, in innovative companies, ideally, the brand is influenced by the experimentation. But design for conversion often takes also a more tactical lens to understand the nuances of conversion funnels. So sometimes the brand designers, they should understand the emotional impact of what they're doing and understand how to incorporate experimentation insights into their brand design, but they might not have all of the depth of knowledge of the tactical UX experiences, and they might not need it in the overall brand positioning and how they're designing that way. But ideally, a skilled designer would understand where both of those components are necessary to pull on those skill sets. But some brand designers are just absolutely anti-conversion. So, they should never touch your conversion funnels. So, that's kind of just a rule of thumb.
That wraps up the session. Thank you so much, Chris and Gretchen.
Thank you.